The cat's name is Willie. He came to us when we first got moved in here, and came from the pound, and he's been a great cat. He's got a little white stripe. This generation of people came to homestead DAcres in about 1997. Before that, my aunt and uncle moved up in they bought the property in 1942 and moved up in 1945. Before that, the Elliots came to Dorchester in the early 1800s and built the Red House in about 1838, we think. So there's been activity on the property by the colonialists for about 200 years. The nonprofit was founded about 10 years ago, but we just kept the name from the LLC that we had beforehand. How many acres? It's virtually unlimited. We don't really believe in property ownership, so I think we're going to count everything that we can see as something that we take responsibility for and take ownership of. It's not a very good, legitimate answer in this day and age. The deed that my aunt and uncle originally got transferred to them said 200 acres, more or less, and they brought the property for $900. So they paid about $4.50 per acre. It's mostly forested. We end up farming on about, depending on if you count hay field and forest garden, about 10 acres. The mixed vegetables is about 2 to 3 acres. Pretty intensive gardening. Who owns the property? That would be the Trought family. My parents are currently, the documented legal owners of the land. The nonprofit is leasing the building and the grounds, and in the future, we'd like to see some sort of public ownership entity to be the decision-making body regarding the property. Well, that's dependent on who you ask. I've been here for about 16 years. Regina's been here for about 5 years. There's people at various times just here for a week or two. Right now there's a lady from Denmark that's here for a week. And there's a fellow from China coming on Monday for 3 weeks. So there's a degree of permanence, but there's also a degree of mobility and transition that goes on here. It's trying to keep a balance to perpetuate the program. It depends. At times there's been about 15 people on site at one juncture. Sometimes it goes down to 1 or 2 people during the winter. There's a seasonal variation as well as just circumstance, coincidence, how many people will be here. I think by and large we are trying to not grow extremely fast. That's not our main purpose. We like to have continuity and try to perpetuate the personnel that's on site. There's been a lot of transition through the years and a lot of turnover, and it's definitely allowed a lot of experience and a lot of work to get done, but it's also been turbulent. and somewhat chaotic at times to retrain people and start from scratch. So for the most part, we like to be have as much continuity as we can. What does the D stand for? There was originally, when we first came here, a need for a name. People felt like you got a farm, you need a name. And we struggled with that. There's a lot of cliche type names out there, and sort of hard to pick one. But Edith, when I was coming up, I called her Aunt D, and my uncle's name was Delbert, so Uncle Deb, and then Dorchester. So, the D's pretty prominent in what's going on here. And we thought about 3 DAcres and D cubed, and it just didn't really work, I don't think. So one day we were out working, and Edith was giving us some advice, and the manner she was accustomed to doing that, and it sometimes it was hard to take that advice. So we got to humming the song from Green Acres to DAcres, and it sort of stuck from there. There's also an acronym that the DAcres stands for, and it's Development Aimed at Creating a Rural Ecological Society. Snappy, huh? Whew. Sometimes by the skin of our teeth, and then other times, in reality, we're very blessed. Through the years, we have received a lot of financing from the Trought family to build the infrastructure and the organization and the program. More recently, in the recent history, the last 4 or 5 years, we've really tried to wean ourselves from that reliance, and we're focused on generating a diverse stream of income. And so we'll be looking at farm products, everything from pork to potatoes to nursery plants, as well as cordwood. Anything we can really derive and add value from the land, growing things. And then we also will try to value add those resources. So we'll take plants from the garden and make tea or culinary herbs, dry culinary herbs, and then sell them. Or we do a lot of value adding in the wood shop. So we'll take the wood from the forest and make bowls and spoons and furniture and market them as well. We also have, we're a non-profit, so we accept donations and we apply for grants. We have an overnight accommodations enterprise that we run. We allow people to come onto the farm and experience the farm, and we also serve them meals. So that's a way we can value add our cabbage and into sauerkraut into guest mouths. We also do educational programming, so we have a permaculture class on an annual basis, as well as various workshops and different events, like Regina does a cooking class. And we also have regular food events, community food events, such as the potluck open mic and the farm feast breakfast and the pizza night, and we accept donations for those events as well. I think we started DAcres because we saw there was a need. We saw that the education system and our societal framework was not conducive to getting people back to the land. And so there needs to be places where people can learn about agriculture and living close to the land, as well as actually actualize that and implement that. For me, we don't necessarily want some sort of white elephant that's a mirage, an illusion of sustainability. What we'd like to do is work together collectively on the land, farm-based enterprise in which we can reduce our fossil fuel footprint, not pollute the environment, and find a way to live together and harmonize as best we can. Well, the main house here, we tend not to occupy because it's better for guests if we don't make ourselves at home in the rooms we're trying to rent. So by and large, the people that stay here sleep in outbuildings or shanties or tree houses, sort of spaced throughout the property, and they afford us privacy and the ability to really get close to nature, to live with thin walls and big windows, so that it's part of the process. It allows us all to have some privacy, as well as allows us a place to use those moments of meditation, or meditative moments, to remember why we're here. And that sort of combination of, a communal building where we all get together and work together is a great element, but there's also a need for personal reflection and intimacy that's not a group project. So the tree houses and outbuildings and dwellings that we occupy in the woods are real great for that. And it depends. We grow all kinds of mixed vegetables. We grow fruit and nut trees, and we raise animals. We're looking to develop a food system that's sustainable for this ecology and for this environment, more or less rocky hillside slopes of Appalachia in the northern latitudes, mountainous terrain, where we can develop a food system that will be perpetuating and enduring and sustainable. So the food system is evolving. When we first came here, very much a vegetarian type organization, and over time learned and felt like the land would benefit from having animals on it, and animals being incorporated into the farm system. And so we've used pigs and chickens quite a bit to help develop the land and help develop the arable land. But in this process, we've also realized that it's going to take a long time to get sufficient arable land and sufficient plant species in the ground and producing crop, such as nut trees. It's going to take a long time. So during that continuum, we've developed a relationship with the animals and are eating meat. The amount of food that we grow varies, but we've gone from maybe 5% of the food that we eat we raised on the land the first year to maybe 60-70%, maybe more at this juncture. Particularly at certain times of the year, and depending on who's cooking, we could be near about 90-100% of the meal would be directly from the land. So what do we grow? A little bit of everything, and try to have a really diverse diet. And some years, some crops do better than others, so we're really not dependent on any one thing. Grow a lot of garlic, a lot of potatoes, a lot of storage crops, cabbage, winter squash. We grow a lot of greens, a lot of kale. We have a lot of apple trees, blueberry plants, raspberries, and there's a lot of other perennials in the ground, lots of nut trees and so forth. So, and lots of beans, grow a lot of beans. Trying to get storage beans. And a really four-season diet developed here at the farm. What we do here is a diversity of activities. It's a whole wide spectrum. It's not just getting up in the morning and getting in a tractor and driving from one end of the field to the other. We do a lot of public service type projects. So food events and other public events, workshops, educational programs, presentations, and so forth. We could write an article for the website or for periodicals. We also have engaged with the community in experimental projects, such as like the Local Goods Guide and the Local Foods Plymouth program. The Local Goods Guide is a printed, it's a printed guide, and it's distributed, and it has information about how to get in touch with local farmers or local businesses to get a direct connection and build the local economy in our region. So it requires a lot of administrative type work, contacting farmers, checking information, graphic design, selling ads. So it can be very varied. Our work can vary from farming to administrative type works to organizing, community activism to educational programs, just running the whole gamut. From a farm is a lot of things, and to educate the public requires a lot of different avenues, and so it takes you in various directions at once. I think that question varies depending on who you are, and why you came here. What we're trying to do is provide a place where people can fulfill their passions in life, for a place where we can each occupy niches, wedges in a circle, in which we all attain our life's goals and follow our passions, our interests and so forth. So some people come here with a specific interest in gardening. Some people come with interest in forestry, construction, herbology, woodworking. So it varies. For the most part, what we do here is organize and decide the next course of action, the priorities, and then work together cooperatively to fulfill the goals we've set out. So it varies a lot in the seasonality, of course. In the winter, our activities aren't in the garden because the garden is frozen. So we do a lot more woodworking, a lot more forestry. During the summer months, there's a large focus on the garden. So that's the majority of our time. But our time is also spent doing cooking and cleaning chores, doing bookkeeping, could be stuck doing grant writing or other tasks at times that are, at times you have to send out fundraising letters and whatnot, so licking envelopes can be part of the task. Our schedule really varies. Within that, we try to have focal areas, areas of expertise, areas of passion that people can explore and specialize and really fulfill their goals, artistically, creatively, professionally. So it varies in what you do here. Try to be outdoors as much as possible, and try to be as highly productive as possible in the time we're spent working together for shared goals. Wow. I think we have ambitious potential with the site. We have a lot of infrastructure, and we have some great history, and we have a lot we can build upon. But the future really depends on the people that are here and how we can work together to meet our goals. I think this property could potentially be the residence for 5, 10, 15 people full time, or at least, with ongoing tenure. If we can figure out ways that, different people can have their own space and afford them the equity in either monetary terms or in decision making here at the farm, then we can expand our potential. I think we'd like to see the property and the project really have wings as a community, publicly owned entity in which the people that lived here had a large voice in the decision making and the prioritization and the day-to-day operations of how this organization can continue to work in the community. The plan is to continue and do programs with service orientation for the public, and also survive as a community internally, thrive as a group of people who live here. So we're just going to try to take that on into the future.